We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AVRant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com.
David is moving to a new house that has a room in the basement that he is planning to use as his theater. The room is 12 feet wide and 21 feet long. The ceiling height isn't listed because he's judging based on MLS listings and their photos, but it appears to be about 7 feet for the ceiling height. It's an interlocking drop tile ceiling, so David hopes to be able to run his wires above it. Now, there is an opening in the corner that is across from the fireplace. So if you're viewing some of the videos or some of the pictures that I'm posting here on the YouTube version, there's a fireplace there. And then you can see that you can't see it in the photo, but in the corner there across from the fireplace on the far side of the television, there is an opening there. So that leads to a landing that's at the bottom of the stairs. There's a door at the top of the stairs, and there's doors to the utility room and to the rest of the unfinished basement. So while the opening prevents his theater room from being a perfect rectangle, it's only this small landing area that is open in terms of cubic feet of air to pressurize. So first of all, he thinks that his pair of SVS PC12 NSD subwoofers should be okay in this room size. Do we agree with that? The total cubic volume he'll be dealing with all the doors closed should be under 2,500 cubic feet. So, yeah, absolutely, there should be no problem whatsoever using a pair of PC12 NSDs in 2,500 cubic feet of space. That's really not a problem whatsoever. And yeah, that should work out just fine. I'm not the least bit concerned. If those doors were open, maybe that'd be a slightly different situation, but doors closed should be no problem. So he has already took advantage of some of the great deals that he found. He found a 135-inch diagonal Cine White screen from Elite Screens and a BenQ HT2050 projector. He's saying eventually he'll get a 4K projector, but when he does, he wants it to have it all. He wants it to have Dolby Vision and Rec 2020 color, and he wants to get all that for under $2,000. So that's not happening right now. So he figured he'd try to spend as little as possible right now so he can save up for later. That totally makes sense. So the part of the room that he would like to turn into the front wall already has a small soffit and a built-in set of cabinets and sort of benches. So that's already all built in there. And he was thinking of constructing a false wall or a baffle wall in front of that so he could have acoustic treatments that's at the front of the room behind the false wall. And then he could put some of his equipment behind the screen there. Now, the screen that he bought is not acoustically transparent, and it is a fixed frame screen. So first, what do we think of that idea? Well, I have zero problem with that. I think it makes sense, particularly with that soffit dropping down. Maybe just sort of put a false wall in front of that. Certainly to have acoustic treatment back there. It's not as though the screen you have is going to completely cover the wall. So, you know, as long as the false wall is basically made out of speaker grill cloth, that part is acoustically transparent. The air can still move back there, still work as a bass trap back there. Now, for any equipment you put back there with a fixed frame, non-acoustically transparent screen, it's going to be a real challenge to access any of that equipment. So on that front, I'm a little uncertain. Maybe you could construct something that would allow you to flip up the fixed frame screen or something. It's going to be a challenge because a 135-inch screen, that's 120 inches wide. This room is only 12 feet wide, and you're talking about a screen that's 10 feet wide, plus a little bit more for its frame. So you're talking 10 and a half feet probably in width, which means you only have an extra foot and a half for the total room. So we're not talking about a ton of space. You wouldn't be able to like squeeze by the edge of the screen to get back there. So I'm not sure about putting equipment back there. That doesn't make a ton of sense to me. If it is equipment, it's going to have to be something that you do not need to access. And giving yourself a way to get back there means you have to have some way of basically removing the screen. So all of that is doable, but I certainly wouldn't want to put like my disc player back there where I'm moving discs in and out of it, unless it's just like, you know, directly under the screen and you can access it. So that's kind of the start there. Now, he is asking where exactly should he put his seating. He only cares about one row of seats, and he cares a lot about the audio side of things, so he wants that to be optimized. He wants it to be in a good position acoustically in the room, but also one that is appropriate for his 135-inch screen size. So we talked about this with a previous listener. 12 feet from a 135-inch diagonal 16:9 screen gives you a nice 45-degree field of view. Now, he's talking about having this false wall up at the top of at the front of his room. It looks like that's going to be at least 2 feet deep. So it's going to be either, somewhere between 2 and 3 feet deep for that false wall. That means he's going to be sitting 14 or 15 feet from the physical front wall. And then that allows him to be 12 feet from eyes to screen because of this false wall at the front of the room. That means you're going to be right at about 2/3 of the length of this room, because the room is 21 feet long. That is ideal acoustically, as being 2/3 of the way into the room. So I see no problems with this. That all works out swimmingly. 12 feet from eyes to screen with a false wall with about 2 feet behind it. Works out perfectly. So he's planning on making do-it-yourself acoustic panels for the side walls and the back wall as well. He will also put a thick pad under any rugs or carpets. And he's wondering, should he stuff the small windows that are in this basement room with insulation? Acoustically, does that seem like a good idea? Would that be helping at all? Now, this is kind of similar to what I was talking about with a different listener with the skylight. I'm not a big fan of creating a thermal break between your windows and the outside. That window well is supposed to still be the warm zone. It's supposed to still be the same temperature as the rest of the room. And if you go and put insulation there, that creates a thermal break between the inside of the room and the window, which can start to create condensation. And if you got insulation in there, you might not notice it because you're not able to see it. So I'm not a huge fan of that. And these are small windows. Acoustically speaking, you're not going to be getting a tremendous amount of benefit out of that anyway. I would err on the side of just blacking those windows out. If you want to hang some drapes over them, that would be a perfectly fine idea. I wouldn't advise stuffing them with insulation because I am not a fan of creating a thermal break for any type of windows. So lastly, he isn't going to upgrade his speakers and receiver right away. He has 7 speakers and he has dual subwoofers for right now. But since he'll be running speaker wire, he was thinking of pre-wiring for Atmos, and he'd love to have a full Atmos system with the maximum 10 overhead speaker positions and then maybe 11 or 13 floor level speakers. You could have 2 sets of side surrounds, front wides, maybe the surround height speakers for Oro. Lots of options there. So at present, he knows that only Trinnov, Datasat, Steinway, Langdorf, these super expensive processors are capable of accommodating greater than a 7.2.4 speaker layout. But he's thinking receiver manufacturers are always looking to add more features. So is it crazy to think that maybe they'll do something that can do 9.2.6 or, maybe even more than that? Maybe something that can actually do all 10 overhead speaker positions. I got to be honest with you, I don't see that happening in mass market receivers. I do kind of think that 7.2.4 is where we've kind of topped out. It's actually what they've already set up at the movie studios when they're mastering for content for home releases. They're doing that on 7.2.4 setups. I don't really anticipate that we're going to do it. It's not impossible. I've been proven wrong before. Heck, maybe you'll win a bunch of money or get a much higher paying job and be able to afford like a Trinnov or a Steinway Langdorf or something like that. But he's saying, is there any harm in pre-running the wires? No, absolutely not. You want to pre-run the wires. Cheaper to do so all in one go. Speaker wire isn't that expensive. There's certainly no harm in pre-wiring, but I wouldn't anticipate something in the mass market receivers that is capable of doing that. You could go with the 3 or 4 receiver solution, expand it yourself. So that's sort of my answer there.
Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com. This is AVRant.
Now go out and listen to something.